You guys will never believe what happened. I'm Chloe, living in this charming, historic home in the lakeside town of Cresthaven, chasing my dream of becoming a painter who captures the so fleeting moments on canvas. Tonight I was out on our backyard patio, spilling my heart out on a late-night phone call, thinking I was alone under the stars. But Elias, my neighbor, a retired architect with this quiet, magnetic vibe, think silver hair, brushed back, gray eyes that seemed to sketch the world, and a voice that could blueprint a dream, overheard something I never meant for him to hear. What followed was a conversation charged with tension neither of us dared to name, but both of us felt deeply. Want to know how it went down? Keep watching, because this story's all about one night that hums louder than the lake's whispers in Cresthaven. Like and subscribe for more. Chloe had planned to spend the evening in her attic studio, losing herself in her latest canvas, a bold swirl of midnight blues and starlit silvers, inspired by Cresthaven's shimmering lake at night. The historic family home with its creaking oak floors, ivy-draped windows, and the faint scent of aged wood was her sanctuary. Nestled in a leafy suburban neighborhood where the lake's gentle lapping fueled her restless creativity. Her paintings were vivid, their strokes mirroring the dangerous desires that simmered beneath her poised exterior, always seeking a spark to ignite them into something alive. But tonight, those desires flared unexpectedly on the backyard patio, sparked by a private phone call that wasn't as private as she'd thought, pulling her toward Elias, her neighbor, whose quiet warmth had become a blueprint she couldn't stop tracing. At 68, Elias was a retired architect whose reserved charm had intrigued her since she returned to Cresthaven a year ago after art school. His silver hair was brushed back. His gray eyes held the depth of decades designing elegant structures, and his hands, steady from years of drafting precise lines, moved with a quiet, deliberate grace that felt like a sketch coming to life. His evening, Chloe, in passing, paired with a gentle nod, had always felt warm, but distant, like a blueprint filed away. She'd told herself it was just appreciation for a neighbor who'd once shared stories of designing Cresthaven's library, who'd admired her paintings during a garden chat. But her dangerous desires, always lurking, stirred a curiosity she couldn't quiet. And tonight, those desires erupted when Elias overheard a confession meant only for her friend on the phone. The evening was crisp, Cresthaven alive with the hum of crickets and the lake's soft ripples, the air thick with the scent of damp grass and blooming jasmine from the patio's garden. Chloe had slipped outside to the backyard patio, craving the cool night air after a long day of painting. The patio was a cozy haven, its stone tiles warmed by a small fire pit, its wooden tables scattered with a sketchbook and a mug of chamomile tea, and string lights casting a soft golden glow overhead. The lake's silver shimmer was visible through the trees, reflecting a crescent moon, while a gentle breeze carried the faint chime of a neighbor's wind bell, its notes weaving through the night like a soft lullaby. Chloe settled into a wicker chair, her phone pressed to her ear, her voice low as she spilled her heart to her friend Leela, confessing a restless pull she felt toward Elias's quiet intensity, the way his eyes lingered when he spoke of art, the spark she sensed beneath his reserve. "I know he's just a neighbor," she whispered, her voice a mix of frustration and longing. "But there's something about him, Layla. It's like he sees me, really sees me, and it's driving me crazy." She hadn't noticed Elias in his backyard tending to his roses under the moonlight, his silhouette barely visible through the fence. But the breeze carried her words, and his head turned, his gray eyes catching hers through the slats, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. Chloe froze, her heart lurching as she ended the call, her cheeks flushing in the fire pit's glow. Elias stepped through the gate, his pruning shears set aside, his flannel shirt open at the collar, his voice gentle but curious as he approached. "Chloe," he said, his tone a warm hum like a blueprint unfolding. "I didn't mean to overhear, but I did." His eyes held hers, the air charged with the weight of her confession, the lake's hum a quiet pulse in the background. She stood, her sketchbook forgotten on the table, her voice unsteady but bold. "You weren't supposed to hear that," she said, her hazel eyes glinting with a mix of embarrassment and daring, the string lights casting golden flecks across her face. "But I meant it." Her dangerous desires pushed her forward, the patio shrinking to just the two of them. The fire pit's crackle mingling with the jasmine and a trace of Elias's cologne sandalwood, warm and grounding, like a well-drawn line. He nodded, stepping closer, his smile soft but tinged with something deeper, his hands resting lightly on the table's edge. "I should apologize for listening," he said, his voice low, steady, "but I'm not sure I'm sorry. That was unexpected." His gray eyes flickered over her, a warmth breaking through his reserved demeanor, the air humming with possibility as the wind bell chimed softly. Their conversation began cautiously, the fire pit's glow casting long shadows across the patio. They spoke of small things, her latest painting, his garden's roses, but the undercurrent of her overheard words lingered, charging every pause. Chloe's mind drifted to flashes of their past interactions, each a line in the blueprint of their connection. She recalled the first time they'd met, when Elias had welcomed her back to Cresthaven with a nod from his porch, his sketch of the town's library catching her eye as he explained its arches. Another memory surfaced, a summer evening when he'd invited her to see his rose garden, sharing a story about designing a chapel, his voice warm as she teased him about his old drafting tools. Then there was the quiet moment when he'd admired her starlit canvas, his hand brushing hers as he pointed to a stroke. His voice soft. "You've got an architect's eye for beauty, Chloe." A more recent evening flickered when she'd lingered at his gate, returning a borrowed book on Gothic structures, his gaze holding hers as he said, "You make the world feel designed, Chloe." Each memory carried a spark she'd tried to dismiss, blaming his reserve on neighborly distance. But now, on the patio, the air felt electric, like a sketch waiting to be inked. The conversation deepened, the wind bell's notes a soft undercurrent as the night grew darker. The lake's shimmer, a silver glow through the trees. Chloe opened up more than she'd planned, the intimacy of the patio loosening her guard. She spoke of her painting, how it felt like capturing a moment's soul before it faded. "It's like I'm trying to hold on to something that's slipping away," she said, her voice soft but fervent, her fingers brushing the edge of her sketchbook, its pages curling in the breeze. "I want my art to make people feel alive, like the lake at night. Does that sound too much?" Her hazel eyes met his, searching for the man behind the gentle nods, her dangerous desires stirring under his steady gaze, urging her to push beyond the accidental confession. Elias leaned against the table, his hands close enough that she could feel their warmth, a quiet strength like a perfectly drawn line. "Not too much," he said, his voice low, resonant, like an architect unveiling a hidden design. "Your paintings have that spark, Chloe. I saw it in that starlit piece you showed me alive, like a blueprint for something real. It's captivating." His words were measured, but a new weight lingered in them, a hesitation that made her pulse quicken, her curiosity flaring like a line finding its mark. She tilted her head, the fire pit's glow catching the curve of her cheek, her smile teasing but deliberate. "Captivating?" she asked, her voice playful but edged with daring, her hazel eyes locking on his, their gray depths reflecting the string lights like a polished draft. "That's a big word for the neighbor who just paints in her attic. You sure you're not just being kind after, overhearing me?" Her dangerous desires pushed her forward, the patio shrinking to just their shared space, the wind bell's melody a soft heartbeat, the lake's hum a quiet witness. He chuckled, setting his pruning shears on the table, his eyes holding hers a moment longer than usual, a flicker of something unguarded in his gaze. I'm not that kind, he said, his voice warm but tinged with a quiet intensity, like an architect revealing a hidden structure. You're not just the neighbor, Chloe. You've got this. Fire in your art, in the way you speak. I wasn't supposed to hear that call, but now that I have, it's hard to pretend I didn't. The wind bell chimed softly, its notes curling around them like a gentle draft. The air heavy with the scent of jasmine and the weight of their moment, the fire pit's glow wrapping them in warmth. Chloe's mind raced, weaving through more memories that deepened their connection. She remembered a spring afternoon when Elias had stopped by to share a sketch of a local bridge, lingering to discuss her latest painting, his voice warm as he said, "You see the world like I see lines." Another moment flickered, a fall evening when he'd helped her hang a canvas in the garden, his hand brushing hers, his smile brief, but carrying a warmth that lingered in her chest. There was the time he'd paused at her gate, admiring her sketch of the lake, his voice soft as he said, "Your work stays with me, Chloe." And a quiet moment last week when he'd leaned over the fence, his eyes catching hers as he said, "You make Cresthaven feel like art." Each memory was a line tightening the blueprint between them, pulling her closer to the edge of something bold, her heart pounding with the possibility that his reserve was hiding a deeper design. The conversation stretched on, the fire pits crackle a soft rhythm as the night deepened. The lakes hum a quiet pulse in the background. Chloe shared more than she'd intended, her dangerous desires loosening her tongue. She spoke of her fears that her paintings might go unnoticed, her dream to create art that lingered like a memory. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm chasing something impossible," she admitted, her voice softer now, her fingers brushing the table's edge, its wood cool under her touch. "But when I paint, it's like I'm alive in a way I can't explain. Do you ever feel that way about your designs?" Her eyes searched his, her heart seeking not just connection, but a glimpse of the man beneath the architect, the lake's hum echoing her pulse. Elias leaned closer, his elbow brushing hers on the table, the contact sending a spark through her, like a line hitting the perfect angle. "Every time I see a structure that moves me," he said, his voice low, resonant, like an architect sharing a private vision. "Your starlit painting did that, Chloe. It's not just art you poured onto the canvas. That kind of fire, it is rare." His words carried a new intensity, a crack in his reserved facade, and the air between them shifted, the fire pit's glow amplifying the moment, her plan gaining momentum like a sketch finding its form. She tilted her head, her smile teasing but deliberate, the string lights casting golden flecks across her face. "Rare?" she asked, her voice playful but pointed, her hazel eyes glinting with mischief. "That's high praise from the guy who designed half of Cresthaven. You sure you're not just humoring me after hearing my little confession?" Her dangerous desires pushed her forward, the patio narrowing to just their shared space, the wind bell's melody a soft pulse, the lake's light a quiet witness. He laughed, a warm, low sound, his hand shifting closer on the table, his eyes holding hers with a new depth, like he was sketching a design he'd long avoided. "I don't humor anyone," he said, his voice warm but edged with something raw, something real. "You're not just the artist next door, Chloe. You've got this presence, this spark that makes people stop and look. I wasn't supposed to hear that call, but now that I have, it's hard to go back to pretending." The lake's hum mingled with the wind bell's notes, the air thick with the scent of sandalwood and the weight of their moment, the fire pit's warmth wrapping them in its glow. "Hey guys," Chloe said, her voice bright but laced with mischief, as if speaking to her imaginary audience, her eyes glinting as she leaned back, breaking the tension for a moment. "We're about to get into this spicy portion of the story, so please don't forget to like and subscribe." She grinned, the words a playful nod to her daring, but her heart pounded as she shifted, leaning closer to Elias, her shoulder brushing his on the table, the contact sending a spark through her like ink hitting a blank page. Elias's breath hitched, his eyes catching the movement, his voice trailing off as he stared, the air between them warming, electric. Chloe didn't pull back, her gaze steady, bold, holding his with a quiet challenge that felt like a line defining a new structure. "You weren't supposed to hear that," she said softly, her voice charged with truth, her hazel eyes unwavering. "But I'm not sorry you did. I'm not imagining this, am I? This isn't just neighborly anymore." The moment held, the silence electric. The wind bells notes a distant hum as the patio narrowed to just them. The stone tiles, the fire pit's glow, the lake's silver shimmer, casting shadows like a spotlight. Her heartbeat quickened, her breath steady but charged, her dangerous desires carrying her forward like a bold stroke across a canvas. She'd thought she was alone on that call, but now, standing close, her plan was unfolding. The air alive with possibility, the fire pits crackle a rhythm to their unspoken dance. Elias's gaze softened, a slow smile tugging at his lips, his voice low, strained but warm, like a note held just right. "No, Chloe," he said, his eyes flickering to her hand near his before returning to hers. A spark of something unguarded breaking through his reserved demeanor. "It's not just neighborly. You've got this way of drawing people in, making them see the world through your art. I've been trying to keep things simple to stay the neighbor, but you're making that impossible." Her smile widened, her heart soaring, the tension, a living thing between them, pulsing like the fire pit's glow. "Maybe I like making it impossible," she said, her voice teasing but honest, leaning closer, her shoulder brushing his, the contact electric, sending a shiver through her like ink spilling across a page. "Maybe I don't want you to stay just the neighbor anymore." Her eyes locked on his, the wind bell's notes swelling like a cue, her plan unfolding in the charged silence. He laughed, a low, warm sound, his hand resting on the table, fingers brushing hers, the touch sparking a fire in her chest that felt like a painting coming to life. "Your trouble, Chloe," he said, his voice rich with amusement and intensity, his gray eyes twinkling with a warmth she hadn't seen before, like an architect discovering a new design. "I've been trying to keep my distance, to keep things neighborly, but you stand here with that fire in your eyes, in your art, and I'm supposed to stay composed? You're rewriting every blueprint I've got." Her breath caught, the patio shrinking further, the fire pit's glow framing them like a final act on a stage. Her friend Lila's warning echoed faintly. "He's just being polite, Chloe. Don't read into it," but Lila was wrong. This was real, raw, and electric, a moment sketched in bold lines. "Maybe I like rewriting blueprints," she said, her hand pressing lightly against his, the touch grounding her like a canvas under a brush. "What do you want, Elias? Now that you've heard me and it's just us." He leaned back, his smile slow, deliberate, his eyes tracing her face like he was sketching a design for the first time. "I want to see where this design goes," he said, his voice soft but weighted, like an architect unveiling a hidden vision. "You're bold, Chloe, bolder than I was ready for. You stand here with that spark in your paintings, in your words, and you're turning my world upside down. I'm not sure I want to stop you." The air was thick with possibility, the wind bells' notes fading to a soft pulse. The patio, alive with their shared moment, the lake's hum, a quiet rhythm in the background. Chloe's dangerous desires pushed her forward, her heart racing with the thrill of her plan coming to life, the intimacy of the patio amplifying every glance, every word. "You're making it really hard to keep this neighborly," she teased, her voice a mix of playfulness and truth. Her hazel eyes locked on his, her courage holding her steady like a brush in her hand. He chuckled, his fingers curling slightly around hers, the touch warm and electric, like a spark in a quiet drafting room. "Neighborly's overrated," he said, his voice low, rich, carrying the weight of their moment, the fire pit's glow casting a golden light across his face. "What do you want, Chloe? Now that I've heard you and it's just us on this patio," her heart pounded, the memory of his words echoing, the spark of his touch still warm on her skin. What did she want? The solitude of her studio, the privacy she'd expected, or this him, the thrill, the fire he ignited in her heart, as vivid as her paintings. I want to keep this, she said, her voice steady now, her eyes locked on his, her hand pressing against his, the contact grounding her like a finished painting ready to be hung. This feeling, this moment. His smile widened, his eyes twinkling with warmth and intensity like an architect seeing a design come to life. That's a bold choice, he said, his voice soft but charged. The wind bells' final notes fading into silence, leaving only the faint crackle of the fire pit and the lake's gentle hum. But I've always been a fan of bold. The patio was still, the fire pit's glow a golden light, reflecting their moment like a perfectly framed sketch. Ilyas's hand lingered near hers, the air alive with possibility. The sketchbook and mug on the table forgotten like props left on a stage. The lake outside shimmered, its silver light a quiet witness to their connection. "Good night, Chloe," he said, his voice soft but heavy with meaning, his eyes holding hers as he stepped back, offering her a way out but leaving the door wide open, the fire pit's glow casting long shadows behind him. "Good night, Elias," she said, her voice a mix of teasing and truth, her heart pounding as she turned toward the house, the spark between them brighter than the string lights overhead. She crossed the patio, Cresthaven's rhythm soothing, the lake's hum a soft applause in the night. As she leaned against her door, her heart ablaze with the thrill of what might come next. She knew her dangerous desires had spoken louder than her private call, leaving only a daring new chapter, one fearless stroke at a time.